Hello, everybody. Welcome. Good to be here with all of you tonight. We're going to have yet another one of our great late night conversations, so let's do it.
Spoken of the American century. I say that the century on which we are entering can be and must be the century of the common man.
A radical redistribution of economic power.
I mean, we know that racism is just a byproduct of capitalism. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people.
We need a government that will make sure Americans are taken care of and organize the economy to serve the people, not the profits of a wealthy few.
We now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty.
We got to start getting out there with the people.
Get out of the movement and get to the masses.
We need a government of action.
Welcome, everybody. The way these streams generally work is I give my opening remarks, followed by a roll call, and then I answer your questions. However, I actually wanted to just start out the stream on a rather serious note, because as you all know, if you haven't heard already, we do have what do you call it? The morning messages on the CPI YouTube channel. We have morning messages as a way that people can, share things with the CPI community. And I logged in today to see a morning message that had been uploaded from somebody about a very pending death penalty case, about the case of Marcelus Williams. So I don't know who this person is, but they made this video. They uploaded this video about the details of the Marcelus Williams case. Unfortunately, it appears that just an hour ago, Marcelus Williams, a man who DNA evidence pointed to his innocence, was executed by the state of Missouri. But this is the morning message that someone submitted about the case that I received today. And I want to thank the person who did make this message, and thank you for sending it. I'm going to show it, and it is scheduled for tomorrow. I am going to, it will premiere on the CPI YouTube channel tomorrow. So I guess this is what someone had to say about the case. And before we begin and do our announcements and all of that, I'm just going to let this person talk about the case, and we'll go from there.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you're having an amazing day. I am making this morning message because I've had something weighing on my mind. For those who haven't heard, because it's been blasted all over the internet for a while now, 55-year-old Marcelus Williams, who has been incarcerated for the past 24 years, is set to be executed by lethal injection today. For a crime in which there is considerable evidence that he did not commit. Most importantly is DNA evidence, which does not show that he committed the crime. So I first heard about this case a couple months ago. And shout out to the folks at the Innocence Project who have really been going above and beyond to make sure that as many people as possible are hearing about this case. I believe he's set to be executed in the state of Missouri by lethal injection today, September 24th at 6 p.m. So I just wanted to make this video to raise awareness, to remind people that, we still have people that are being incarcerated for crimes they didn't commit, and also have been sentenced to death. This is still something happening in 2024. If you are interested in reading more about the case, there is a petition, I think, that has been circulated that is going around. It's got about 400,000 signatures at this point. If you'd like to add your name, please feel free to do so. But yeah, all eyes should be on Missouri today, where an innocent man, Marcelus Williams, is set to be executed. I don't have time to get into the details of the case, but feel free to do your own research and perhaps sign the petition if you can. It would be great if as many people as possible came together to save this man's life. I hope you have an amazing day.
So that was the morning message that someone submitted, and I do thank that person for their message. That is the morning message that someone submitted about Marcelus Williams, but apparently an hour ago, Marcelus Williams was executed. So I guess we should begin tonight's stream with a moment of silence in honor of Marcelus Williams, and to, call for an end to the death penalty in the United States. Okay, so yeah, that seemed like the way that we needed to start out tonight's stream. Awful that things like this still happen in the United States of America. I wish I had known more about the case prior to today. I thank that person for making the morning message. And, every morning on the CPI YouTube channel, we do have morning messages from people that are part of our CPI community. And if you want to do what this person did, if there's an issue that's very important to you that you want to talk about, or there's there's something that you would like to raise awareness about, or something that you think will inspire people, you can submit a morning message yourself. And I thank that person for doing that. This is the CPI YouTube channel where we have the morning messages every morning. This is the link for where one can submit morning messages, because we need more members to step up. A lot of our members have been making morning messages lately. So here's the link to submit a morning message on the Center for Political Innovation YouTube channel. We do have this link that you can make a morning message of your own. So we do want to have that. Now, the way these streams tend to work is I give my opening remarks, and my opening remarks are followed by a roll call where I call you all out as I see you, names and locations. And then from there, we answer your super chat questions or your Rumble rant questions for the rest of the night. So if there's something you would like me to talk about in the second half of the show, all you need to do is send me a super chat. Send me a super chat, send me a Rumble rant. If you're on Facebook, you just need to go to YouTube, or you need to go to Rumble in order to send me, a question. And the second half of the show is all me answering your questions. So keep that in mind. Now, the way these streams tend to work, I already said that part, but a couple announcements before we go any further, which the main announcement I want to make tonight is that we're having a workshop. This is the workshop that we are having in the Chicago area. It's coming up in the Chicago area. We're having a workshop, and it's going to be a good one. So I hope that you can be there to join us at this very, very important workshop. It's coming up in the Chicago area. It's going to be good. Please sign up, register to attend the workshop. There'll be speeches, music, good food, catered, etc. The link to register is down below. You can follow that QR code, or I'll drop the link in the chat. A couple registrations have come in so far, which is good, and we're going to have a great time. So I hope you'll go ahead and register if you're able to join us. It should be a good day out there in the U.S. state of Illinois in the Chicago area. That's coming up on October 12th. The theme is Working Families First, Build the Economy, Not the Empire. And it's going to be a great workshop, and I really hope that you will join us. And it's going to be good. It'll be good to meet like-minded people. It'll be good to, have education and bond and figure out how we can build the movement that this country desperately needs. We do need to build a movement. More than ever, we need to build a movement. And there are some exciting developments going on right now. They say that when one door closes, another opens. And in this case, the door hasn't necessarily closed, but it looks like a new door has opened. So some very exciting things are happening for our community right now, to say the least. These things take time, but some very, very good developments I became aware of today. Some new opportunities presented themselves. And it looks like a lot is going to be happening. So we are going to have our workshop on October 12th. I hope you will sign up and join us in the Chicago area. It's going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to be really important because of everything that's coming up. Also, there's going to be not just an event. Looks like we are definitely having an event, that'll happen on October 17th in New York City, themed around peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. But it looks like there's going to be some very, very exciting activities coming up, themed around the peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. I took care of some things today, and in light of some new developments and everything that's going on, it looks like in the lead up to the presidential election, where that seems to be a very big difference between the two candidates. One of the candidates wants to continue the peace talks on the Korean Peninsula. The other is opposed to such peace talks taking place. Meanwhile, a U.S. nuclear submarine is headed to the Korean Peninsula. All of this points to an opportunity for our community to make a difference. And that's what we strive to do, right? We, with our abilities, with our human will, and with our spiritual energy, and our passion and our dedication, we seek to make a difference in this world. And we see a division between the elite in the United States when it comes to not just the Korean Peninsula, but also to Ukraine. And we see an opportunity for to insert ourselves into history, to make a difference. And I'm very excited about the role that we can play in changing the course of events in the next couple months. I don't think we're going to change the election outcome, but I do think we can change the conversation, and we can change it in a way that's better for America, better for the world, and move it away from the danger of a new world war. I'm very, very excited about what we can accomplish in the coming months. I'm very excited. I haven't been this excited in a long time. I thought things were going to get demoralizing and frustrating, but it looks like things have the potential in the next couple of weeks, in the next couple of months, to really go in a good direction. And our community is going to become even more important than it was before. And we're going to do even more dynamic work. I look over at everything we've done this year, and it looks like we got even more to do. So on that note, folks, like I said, the way these streams work, I give my opening remarks. Then from there, we do the roll call. Then I answer your questions for the rest of the night. Tonight, I am feeling a little bit tired because I had an early morning, and I've got another early morning tomorrow, and I've got a lot of work ahead of me, which is good. It's good. I've got a lot of work ahead of me and a lot of work to do in the coming weeks, but it looks like some very, very good things are happening. So tonight, for my opening remarks, I'm going to react to Joe Biden's UN speech, which, I mean, it's just such a joke. I might have time to react to that as well. If you can send the link, that would make it easier for me. And then I'll do the roll call, then I'll answer questions, and then we'll be back the next night. And our community is marching ahead. We never give up, we never surrender, and we always win. We always win as a community. We really do. We always win. And I am just blown away by how much our positive attitude means. We really have a positive vibe that we have, and it keeps opening new doors for us. And we're living in very frustrating times where there's a lot of pessimism and there's a lot of demoralization. And we live in very, very, very exciting times when, if we are able to maintain our optimism and maintain our hope and just keep going and not back down, if we can keep our heads up and keep focused on what it is we want to build and keep an abundance mindset, keep an abundance mindset, the website's fine, cpiusa.org. It's totally fine. cpiusa.org. I don't know why this guy's trolling. But it's a totally fine website. It's totally fine. It's working just fine, my friend. I hope you're not trolling. I really do, because the website is working just fine. Center for Political Innovation, cpiusa.org. We keep an optimistic attitude, and we keep going, and we never surrender, and we never back down, and we're doing great things. Great things are ahead, and I am really, really excited, honestly. I'm excited about what's coming and the opportunities that we have just been presented with. So there we go. All right, so this is Joe Biden's UN speech, and we are going to react to it point by point. Yeah, I will block the troll if he keeps bugging me. The trolls have been coming on lately, and they've been doing weird stuff, so... Alrighty. So let's react to Joe Biden's UN speech.
My fellow leaders, today is the fourth time I've had the great honor of speaking to this assembly as President of the United States. It'll be my last. I've seen a remarkable sweep of history. I was first elected to office in the United States of America as a U.S. Senator in 1972. Now, I know I look like I'm only 40. I know that.
Oh, that's so funny. That's so funny. He almost didn't step down. Almost ran again. They had to threaten him with the 25th Amendment. And he's up here, and this speech is purely an exercise in vanity, right? He did his little summits for democracy. Yeah. Yeah, there you go. He did his ego summits for democracy and all of that. But there you go. And, but here we go. Let's continue.
9 years old. Back then, we were living through an inflection point, a moment of tension and uncertainty. The world was divided by the Cold War. The Middle East was headed toward war. America was at war in Vietnam.
Yeah, let's note that Joe Biden has been in office since the beginning of time. Joe Biden first became a U.S. Senator in 1972, and the year is 2024, and that he came from a political family, and he represents the corrupt urban political machines of the Democrat Party. And Joe Biden, I mean, if you've ever been to Delaware, you look at all the poverty there, and you also look that Wilmington, Delaware is a tax haven. It is basically a tax haven, that there's like hundreds and hundreds of huge corporations headquartered in one building because the taxes are so good. There's so many loopholes in their tax law. Joe Biden is a child of the entrenched political wealth of the corrupt Democratic Party and its urban political machines.
At that point, the longest war in America's history. Our country was divided and angry, and there were questions about our staying power and our future. But even then, I entered public life not out of despair, but out of optimism. The United States and the world got through that moment. wasn't easy or simple without significant setbacks. But we go on to reduce the threat of nuclear weapons through arms control, and then go on to bring the Cold War itself to an end. Israel and Egypt went to war, but then forged a historic peace. We ended the war in Vietnam. The last year in Hanoi, I met with the Vietnamese leadership. We elevated our partnership to the highest level. It's a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the capacity for reconciliation. That today the United States and Vietnam are partners and friends, and it's proof that even from the horrors of war, there's a way forward.
Well, it's not that simple. It's pretty clear that Obama was trying to court Vietnam as an ally against China. But Vietnam welcomed Russian President Vladimir Putin. Vietnam is very friendly to Russia, and he can talk that way now. But Vietnam is an anti-imperialist country, and U.S.-Vietnamese relations are not what they were under Obama. During the Obama years, the USA seemed to be very effectively using Vietnam against China. That's not really the case. He's reminiscing about history, but he's not really reflecting accurately U.S.-Vietnam relations. Vietnam supports Russia in Ukraine. Vietnam is not antagonistic toward China in the way that it was during the Obama years. So this is not accurate.
Things can get better. We should never forget that. I've seen that throughout my career. In the 1980s, I spoke out against apartheid in South Africa. And then I watched the racist.
Yeah, and the U.S. government not only supported apartheid in South Africa, but actually called Nelson Mandela and the African National Congress terrorists. They were designated as terrorists. The ANC was a Soviet-supported organization. Nelson Mandela was on the Communist Party of South Africa's national board. Its National Central Committee. It was revealed that after his death, he had been a secret member of the National Committee of the Communist Party of South Africa. The Soviet Union gave millions and millions of dollars to apartheid, or to the anti-apartheid movement and the African National Congress. There was also another group called the Pan-African Congress that had been supported by China and was supported by a lot of black nationalists. And the U.S. government backed the apartheid regime. And it wasn't until apartheid was on the brink of falling that the U.S. government changed its position. But overwhelmingly, the U.S. position was that the ANC were terrorists and communists. That was the U.S. government position.
This regime fall. In the 1990s, I worked to hold Milosevic accountable for war crimes. He was held accountable.
No, he wasn't. He died before his trial could proceed. Milosevic was the leader of Serbia, and the USA bombed Serbia. And the USA, killed all kinds of innocent Serbians and then funded a color revolution called Otpor to bring down the Serbian government. Milosevic was arrested in The Hague, and his trial never finished because he died before his trial. And many people believe he was killed. And I used to work for Ramsey Clark, who was Milosevic's lawyer. And he was prepared to represent him. And Milosevic got to give one speech before the court, which we used to sell as a book. The International Action Center published Milosevic's speech to the court. And in that speech, he laid out very clearly that he was not a war criminal, that the Kosovo Liberation Army was a group of Islamic extremists who'd been funded by the United States, and he was doing what any government would do in response to Islamic terrorism, and he was fighting against it, and they demonized Serbia with a huge amount of propaganda, and they bombed and destroyed, Serbia, and the trial never concluded. And actually, various UN tribunals have now admitted there was no genocide in Yugoslavia. The idea that this was another Holocaust, they were committing genocide. Sure, there were atrocities committed. Sure, there were bad things done on both sides of the war. But Milosevic did not commit genocide, and his trial never concluded. He never got to have his day in court. All that ever was delivered was one speech, his opening speech, in which he did a really eloquent job of defending himself.
At home, I wrote and passed the Violence Against Women Act to end the scourge of violence against women and girls, not only in America, but across the world, as many of you have as well.
Ask Tara Reid about violence against women. Why don't you ask my friend Tara Reid about your position on violence against women? Why don't we look at all those pictures of him sniffing little girls and touching women and yeah, Joe Biden right there. If he's a big defender of women right there. Oh yeah. I'm sure we buy that. Even Kamala Harris won't retract that she believes that he is a sexual predator.
But we have so much more to do, especially against rape and sexual violence as weapons of war and
or as, the credentials of presidents of the United States.
terror. We were attacked on 9/11 by Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden. We brought him justice.
Really. And we now know that the Saudi government was heavily involved. There's a lot of other questions. A lot of people don't buy the official story of 9/11, including Donald Trump. But let's continue.
Then I came to the presidency at another moment of crisis and uncertainty. I believed America had to look forward. New challenges, new threats, new opportunities were in front of us. We need to put ourselves in a position to see the threats, to deal with the challenges, and to seize the opportunities as well. We need to end the era of war that began on 9/11. As Vice President to President Obama, he asked me to work to wind down the military operations in Iraq, and we did, painful as it was. When I came to office as president, Afghanistan had replaced Vietnam as America's longest war. I was determined to end it, and I did. It was a hard decision.
Well, actually, we know that the pullout of Afghanistan was, first of all, it was planned by the Trump administration. Mike Pompeo was in Doha negotiating and with the Taliban for like years before it happened. So largely it was the Trump administration that prepared for the pullout. And then the actual pullout of Afghanistan was one of the biggest debacles and disasters in American foreign policy history. It was one of the sloppiest pullouts ever. I mean, the USA pulled out in a really sloppy manner, left plenty of their allies behind. They left, people that had relied on the United States were left out to dry. In addition to that, all kinds of military hardware was left over and basically ended up in the hands of the Taliban. Why is he bragging about the pullout of Afghanistan, which was one of it was one of the sloppiest foreign policy moves. I mean, I'm glad the USA pulled out of Afghanistan. I think the Afghanistan's far better off under the Taliban than it was under the instability and drug gang chaos the United States imposed on Afghanistan by occupying it for 20 years. But the idea that the occupation of Afghanistan and then the pullout is something to be proud of. The war itself was a complete mess. It kept Afghanistan unstable for 20 years. It brought the poppy fields and the drug dealers back, made instability. And then the pullout was one of the sloppiest and most crazy moves we've ever seen. So, yeah, not buying it, Joe. Not buying it.
The right decision. 4 American presidents had faced that decision, but I was determined not to leave it to the 5th. It was a decision accompanied by tragedy. 13 brave Americans lost their lives, along with hundreds of Afghans in a suicide bomb.
Yeah, and the family members of those who lost their lives are now making videos supporting Donald Trump, and they blame you for that pullout. You do know that, right? That the family members of those 13 people who died during the Afghan pullout say that it's your fault, and they're voting Trump.
I think those lost lives, I think of them every day. I think of all the 2,461 U.S. military deaths over a long 20 years of that war. 20,744 American servicemen wounded in action. I think of their service, their sacrifice, and their heroism. I know other countries lost their own men and women fighting alongside us. We honor their sacrifices as well. To face the future, I was also determined to rebuild my country's alliances and partnerships to a level not previously seen. We did just that, from traditional treaty alliances to new partnerships like the Quad with the United States, Japan, Australia, and India.
It's interesting because a lot of allies of the United States are so alienated by the Hate Russia campaign. Like India is much further from the United States. Saudi Arabia is much further from the United States. I mean, there's a lot more tension, between the USA and many major countries, Brazil, other countries, because the USA under Joe Biden has demanded this, crazy Hate Russia campaign. On top of that, many U.S. aligned countries in the developing world are so outraged by what Israel is doing and the slaughter of the Palestinians. I don't see him restoring relationships. I mean, obviously, he's been extremely hostile to Russia. He's been extremely hostile to North Korea. He's further antagonized China. He hasn't been able to restore anything close to what there was, temporarily under Obama with the Iran nuclear deal. He hasn't really made any progress on that. But those are anti-imperialist countries. But even among U.S. aligned countries, Saudi Arabia is more distant than ever. India is more distant than ever. Brazil is more distant than ever. So many countries are condemning the United States for backing Israel. I'm not seeing this. He's not made U.S. relationships around the world any better at all. That's just not the truth.
I know many look at the world today and see difficulties and react with despair, but I do not. I won't. As leaders, we don't have the luxury. I recognize the challenges from Ukraine to Gaza to Sudan and beyond. War, hunger, terrorism, brutality, record displacement of people, a climate crisis, democracy at risk, strains within our societies, the promise of artificial intelligence and its significant risk. The list goes on. But maybe because all I've seen and all we have done together over the decades, I have hope. I know there is a way forward. In 1919, the Irish poet William Butler Yeats described a world, and I quote, "where things fall apart, the center cannot hold, mere anarchy is loosed upon the world," end of quote. Some may say those words describe the world not just in 1919, but in 2024. But I see a critical.
Well, I believe that poetry by William Butler Yeats was about the Irish freedom movement, if I'm not mistaken, right? If I remember correctly, that's from that's from his poem about the Irish. Yeah, right. That's his poem about the Easter 1916 uprising in Ireland, and it's a poem honoring the uprising of the Irish people against the British Empire that happened in 1916. James Connolly and others. So it's a little odd that he would quote it that way. So yeah. But the poem Easter 1916 is a pretty good poem by William Butler Yeats. Maybe I'll read it on here later if you want. It's a pretty good poem, but it has nothing to do with what he's talking about.
A critical distinction. In our time, the center has held. Leaders and people from every region and across the political spectrum have stood together, turned the page. We turned the page in the worst pandemic in a century. We made sure COVID no longer controls our lives. We defended.
And what they did with those lockdowns destroyed the mental health of the next generation. Destroyed. I mean, it has been a disaster. We were lied to about the vaccine. I mean, you can go down the line. I mean, the way the Western global elite handled the COVID pandemic was so bad for the world and so devastating. And in a way, it had an economic component to it. It was to preempt an economic crisis. The world economy was about to collapse anyway. There was going to be a major drop. And so they had a controlled drop with COVID. They used COVID to have a controlled drop because the U.S. economy was already, grinding downward. And the lockdowns and the economic toll, this country hasn't recovered. So that's nothing to brag about either.
The UN Charter ensured the survival of Ukraine as a free nation. My country made the largest investment in climate clean energy ever anywhere in history. There will always be forces that pull our countries apart and the world apart. Aggression, extremism, chaos, and cynicism. A desire to retreat from the world and go it alone. Our task, our test, is to make sure that the forces holding us together are stronger than those who are pulling us apart. That the principles of partnership that we came here each year to uphold can withstand the challenges. That the center holds once again. My fellow leaders, I truly believe we're at another inflection point in world history, where the choices we make today will determine our future for decades to come. Will we stand behind the principles that unite us? Will we stand firm against aggression?
Just platitudes. Just a lot of platitudes. But here now he's going to start talking about Ukraine.
Will we end the conflicts that are raging today? Will we take on global challenges like climate change, hunger, and disease? Will we plan now for the opportunities and risk of a revolutionary new technologies? I want to talk today about each of these decisions and the actions, in my view, we must take. To start, each of us in this body has made a commitment to the principles of the UN Charter to stand up against aggression. When Russia invaded Ukraine, we could have stood by and merely protested. But Vice President Harris and I understood that that was an assault on everything this institution was supposed to stand for. And so, in my direction, America stepped into the breach, providing massive security and economic and humanitarian assistance.
Yeah. Let's talk about what actually happened. Because the whole reason that Russia has had to move into Ukraine is because of what's been happening there since 2014. The people of the eastern regions, the people of Donbass, who have now voted to join with Russia, they declared independence in 2014 because their language was being outlawed and they were being bombed and killed. And this is the Alley of Angels, a monument to all those children that were being killed by the U.S.-backed regime. For 8 years straight, these children in Donetsk and Lugansk faced bombardment, and they were being slaughtered. And the Minsk agreement was signed that was supposed to bring them peace, and it didn't. And Zelensky ran for president on a peace platform, and he was supposed to reconcile and have peace with the eastern regions, and he didn't. And after 8 years of bombing, Russia was forced to move in and protect these people. And it's been 10 years these people have had their country turned into, a war zone, have had their regions turned into a war zone. They turned to Russia for protection. And that's the doing of Joe Biden from the Obama administration. He was vice president and he oversaw the overthrow of the Ukrainian government, the installation of a fanatically anti-Russian government, the arming and the piling of weapons into the hands of that government, a peace negotiation process that didn't actually, have any intent of ever being implemented. 8 years of blockades, of violence and killing, and then Russia had to go in. Let's talk about why it really happened.
Our NATO allies and partners and 50-plus nations stood up as well. But most importantly, the Ukrainian people stood up. I asked the people of this chamber to stand up for them. The good news is Putin's war has failed and at his core aim.
How has it failed? What was its core aim?
He set out to destroy Ukraine, but Ukraine is still free.
That's not true at all. He simply set out to give recognition to these regions. The war began when he gave recognition to the independent governments that these people declared, right? There was never any goal of destroying Ukraine as a country. That was never any goal. If you watch the speech that the Russian president gave when the operation began, he talked about how Ukraine's borders were drawn by the Soviet Union. He talked about everything that was happening and why this took place. Go watch the interview he did with Tucker Carlson. There was never any intention to destroy Ukraine as a nation. The intention was to stop the killing, to bring protection to these folks and not have a threat right on their border. Zelensky was talking about getting nuclear weapons, and that went too far. Not have a threat right on their border, not have people that speak the Russian language get slaughtered right on their border. That's what the issue was.
He set out to weaken NATO, But NATO is bigger, stronger, more united than ever before.
No, he set out to not have NATO continue expanding in violation of the promise that was made, right? To not have NATO continue to march right up to his doorstep, to continue to not be threatened by the United States. NATO has been marching eastward and expanding. That's just absurd. He wanted to weaken NATO. Where has he ever said that, right? Where has Putin ever said we want to weaken NATO?
New members, Finland and Sweden. But we cannot let up. The world now has another choice to make. Will we sustain our support to help Ukraine win this war and preserve its freedom?
Ukraine has said that winning would mean that they re-seized all of the Donbas regions, that they would re-seize Crimea, and no, that's never going to happen, right? And how many more Ukrainians have to die, Joe, before you're happy, right? Before Russia will have spent enough of its lives, enough of its resources, enough of its money. I mean, how many Ukrainians are you going to callously throw into this war? How many Ukrainian lives is it worth, Joe, to have the people of Donbass not get to pick their own government, right? How many lives is it worth, Joe, to have, Crimea not be able to decide what country it's part of? I mean, the people there, all they wanted was to not be killed, to not be slaughtered, and 8 years of bombing, 8 years of killing, and now Russia's had to move in and protect them, and now you're piling billions and billions of our tax dollars into prolonging this conflict, and you tell us you care about Ukrainians?
Walk away and let aggression be renewed and a nation be destroyed. I know my answer. We cannot grow weary. We cannot look away. And we will not let up on our support for Ukraine.
Yeah, just keep the killing going, right? Just keep letting people die, right? Keep letting young men from Russia and young men from Ukraine have their lives destroyed because you are just so determined to prove some kind of point, right? To hurt Russia in the global economy, to make a point, to be able to point to Russia and say they're bad. How many lives you're throwing away? You just can't let it go away, right? You're so good at throwing away other people's lives. You know that if it was American troops in Ukraine, there'd be anti-war marches everywhere, and the American people would be even more opposed to this than they already are. The American people would never stand it. So you're throwing away Ukrainian lives to make your point. It's really sick. It really is. That he's sitting here and bragging about the fact that he's prolonging a conflict and just letting people die on the battlefield every day. He's prolonging this war. He's letting people die. He's just determined he will not let it up. Every last Ukrainian man is going to get dragged off the street. So many people have fled the country trying to avoid military service. They're seizing people's property now. It's crazy. Right. And they've outlawed the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. They've outlawed all the opposition parties. Ukraine is not a democracy in any conceivable way. It's a military dictatorship, and it really doesn't have any sovereignty. It's just an outpost, an outgrowth, a front for NATO. And it's just being used against Russia as a proxy. And you're throwing lives away around the clock. People are dying. The body count is rising, and that's totally fine with you, Joe. You just got to make your point, right? You got to make your point that Russia's the bad guy, and we gotta let everyone know that Russia's bad. And so we're just going to keep throwing away lives and keep throwing away American taxpayer money and just keep this going to make your point, that Russia is bad. You want the whole world to think Russia is bad. You want to make anti-Russian propaganda. You want to, so you're just going to keep this going and keep using the Ukrainian people as cannon fodder in your stupid public relations stunt to demonize Russia. It's really, really sickening.
Not to Ukraine wins a just and durable peace in the UN Charter.
There could have been peace at any point, right? Russia was willing to negotiate, and you killed. Right? You killed the peace negotiations. Many times Ukraine has wanted to negotiate peace, and you've stepped in and said, no, they have to keep fighting. You've prevented peace negotiations from taking place. You keep having peace summits where Russia's not invited, and those are not peace summits. Give me a break.
We also need to uphold our principles as we seek to responsibly manage the competition with China so it does not veer into conflict. We stand ready to cooperate.
Yeah, you mean prevent China from being able to have their own computer chips, prevent China from having a military presence in the South China Sea, prevent China from being able to, make its own cell phones and have, waging war against Huawei technologies. You very much, all this competition with China, you don't want a fair playing field. Right? You want to use sanctions and threats and military aggression and intimidation to prevent China from rising. Huawei makes better cell phones than Apple. And instead of having a fair competition, you want to put Huawei out of business, right? You wage a witch hunt against Chinese scientists in America, right? So many Chinese scientists have been arrested or had to flee the country because they've been falsely accused of being spies. Chinese students are terrorized by the FBI. I mean, give me a break. This is competition. It's competition with China, really?
On urgent challenges for the good of our people and the people everywhere. We recently resumed cooperation with China to stop the flow of deadly synthetic narcotics. I appreciate the collaboration. It matters for the people of my country and many others around the world. On matters of conviction, the United States is unabashed, pushing back against unfair economic competition, against military coercion of other nations in the South China Sea.
Yeah, military coercion of other nations is what the United States is doing. I mean, again, China has one overseas military base in Djibouti. Russia has 8 overseas military bases. The United States has well over 1,000. The USA violently overthrew the Iraqi government. That's military coercion. The United States violently overthrew the Libyan government. That's coercion. The United States violently overthrew the government of Afghanistan. That's coercion. The United States violently overthrew the Honduran government when he was vice president in 2009. It was one of the first coups of the Obama administration, 2009. They violently overthrew the government of Honduras. My goodness, right? I mean, when he talks about military coercion, I mean, he's got that down to a science.
And maintaining peace and stability across the Taiwan Straits.
Yeah, is that what you call piling weapons onto the island of Taiwan? Is that peace and stability? Sending Nancy Pelosi there, toying with the main center linchpin of U.S.-China relations, which has been the one China policy by sending higher ranking officials onto the island of Taiwan and threatening China. I mean, give me a break. I mean, you've been antagonizing China just like you're antagonizing Russia. Right. And, you would accuse China of military coercion when you're the one overthrowing governments. You're the one, piling weapons onto Taiwan, piling weapons into Ukraine. Give me a break. Give me a break. Give me a break.
Protecting our most advanced technologies so they cannot be used against us or any of our partners. At the same time, we're going to continue to strengthen our network of alliances and partnerships across the Indo-Pacific. These partnerships are not against any nation. They're building blocks for a free, open, secure, and peaceful Indo-Pacific. We're also working to bring greater measure of peace and stability to the Middle East. The world must not flinch from the horrors of October 7th. Any country would have the right and responsibility to ensure that such an attack can never happen again.
Well, maybe treat the Palestinians with dignity. How about that? How about what's been happening to the Palestinians 24 hours a day, 7 days a week since 1948? That would probably ensure that if you stopped that would probably stop events like October 7th. Give me a break.
Thousands of armed Hamas terrorists invaded a sovereign state.
How do they invade? Where's the border? Where's Israel's border if they invaded? Show me the border of Israel if they invaded. Yeah, that's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. They didn't. I mean, you can't invade a country if it doesn't have clear borders. And the Palestinians live under occupation, under lockdown. So, people living in an open air prison. And you're saying that they broke out of the prisons. They invaded a sovereign country. Is that what happens? Right. Prisoners break out of a prison. They're invading the country around them. Like, that's such a distorted way of referring to things.
Slaughtering and massacring more than 1,200 people, including 46 Americans in their.
A number of them were killed by the Israeli military, we now find out. Right? Gray Zone and Max Blumenthal have done great work about documenting that it was the Israeli military that killed a lot of the people who died on October 7th. Not all of them, but it was the Israeli military that killed a lot of those people.
Homes and at a music festival. Despicable acts of sexual violence.
Debunked. The mass rapes thing has been debunked. There were no beheaded babies. That thing was debunked as well. I mean, you're just repeating every pro-Israeli lie to justify what's going on. How long ago was October 7th? It's been almost a year since October 7th. And that entire year, there's been bombs falling on children and collective punishment and tens of thousands of people killed. But you just want to keep talking about October 7th.
250 innocents taken hostage. I've met with the families of those hostages.
And how many Palestinians sit in Israeli jails for nothing, for throwing rocks? I mean, this is absurd, right? And again, Israel's been bombarding. The death count is in the tens of thousands of civilians killed already. I mean, just relentless murder and torture of the Palestinian people. But October 7th,
I've grieved with them. They're going through hell. Innocent civilians in Gaza are also going through hell.
Oh, now you mention them. But we got to vote for you and Kamala, right? Can't have Trump because he's too pro-Israel. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is why you're going to lose the election, right? You want the Muslim American community to vote for you. You just made a pro-Israeli podium-pounding speech, and then you threw in, oh, yeah, I care about the Palestinians too at the end. I mean, look at the body counts. I mean, my goodness.
Thousands and thousands killed, including aid workers. Too many families dislocated, crowding into tents, facing a dire humanitarian situation. They did not ask for this war that Hamas started.
It's not just a bad situation. It's being directly imposed by Israel, and it's merciless killing. Israel's on a merciless killing spree. Now they're attacking Lebanon, and you just make it sound like it's like a bad hurricane or something. You just can't bring yourself to criticize Israel.
I put forward with Qatar and Egypt a ceasefire and hostage deal. It's been endorsed by the UN Security Council.
Yeah, and then Israel murdered the negotiator in Iran. You remember that? So Israel is preventing it from going forward. And the United Nations ratified the deal for a ceasefire, and Israel has prevented it. I mean, you are sitting here. Israel has completely violated international law. The whole world is horrified by what Israel is doing. You're Israel's blind protector. Israel can do no wrong as far as you're concerned. Wow.
Now is the time for the parties to finalize its terms. Bring the hostages home and secure security for Israel and Gaza free of Hamas grip.
Yeah, well, tell that to Netanyahu. Tell Netanyahu you're not going to give him any more bombs and tanks and cruise missiles unless he implements his deal, and see how fast it'll come. Right? You could do it at any point, right? You are the guy, you're the commander in chief. You could tell Israel no more support unless you implement a ceasefire, and you're not doing that. So pound the podium all you want. You have the power. You're the president of the United States. The power is in your hands to make. You're the one person who, if you really wanted to, could say no to Israel, but you won't.
Ease the suffering in Gaza and end this war.
You could do it. You could very easily do it, Joe. Right? You are the one person who could say no to Netanyahu, and you don't.
October 7th.
You're genocide Joe. And now it's all, there we go, October 7th all over again. I mean, this is such ridiculousness.
Since October 7th, we've also been determined to prevent a wider war that engulfs the entire region. Hezbollah, unprovoked, during the October 7th attack, launching rockets into Israel.
Unprovoked, right? Unprovoked, right? It's not like anything has ever been done to the Palestinians before, right? They were just randy dandy. Everything was fine. And then October 7th happened. Unprovoked, right? Unprovoked. I mean, it's like there's not, it's like there hasn't been years and years of occupation, etc. Just completely unprovoked.
Almost a year later, too many on each side of the Israeli-Lebanon border remain displaced. Full-scale war is not in anyone's interest. Even a situation is...
And why is Netanyahu working so hard to create full-scale war? He's desperate to create full-scale war, right? He's murdering Iranian diplomats in Syria. Netanyahu is determined to create a full-scale war.
It's escalated. A diplomatic solution is still possible. In fact, it remains the only path to lasting security to allow the residents from both countries to return to their homes and the border safely. And that's what we're working tirelessly to achieve. As we look ahead, we must also address the rise of violence against innocent Palestinians on the West Bank and set the conditions for a better future, including a two-state solution where the world, where Israel enjoys security and peace and full recognition.
I mean, he makes a pro-Israel speech, and then he always just throws in, "Oh, I care about the Palestinians too." I mean, it's so absurd.
Normalize relations with all its neighbors, where Palestinians live in security, dignity, and self-determination in a state of their own. Progress toward peace will put us in a stronger position to deal with the ongoing threat posed by Iran. Together, we must deny oxygen to its terrorist proxies, which have called for more October 7th and ensure that Iran will never, ever obtain a nuclear weapon.
Which they don't want, right? Iranian foreign policy, they've never sought to acquire nuclear weapons. They've signed the nuclear non-proliferation treaty. Every nuclear site in Iran is inspected by the International Atomic Energy Agency. They have never been in violation. They followed the Iran nuclear deal that the Obama-Biden administration made to the letter, never violated it. The USA ripped up the agreement. They've still stayed loyal to it. I mean, yeah.
Gaza is not the only conflict that deserves our outrage. In Sudan, a bloody civil war unleashed one of the world's worst humanitarian crises.
Yeah, the USA has been keeping that Sudan conflict going for a long time. I mean, South Sudan was largely an Israeli project. It broke away from Sudan because Israel, subsidized and arranged the creation of South Sudan. And the USA has been keeping that situation there going for a long time because they view the government of Sudan as too friendly to China. And, they want to control Africa. And the USA has worked very, very hard with NGOs and other things to foment that conflict.
8 million on the brink of famine. Hundreds of thousands already there. Atrocities in Darfur and elsewhere. The United States has led the world in providing humanitarian aid to Sudan. And with our partners, we've led diplomatic talks to try to silence the guns and avert a wider famine. The world needs to stop arming the generals, to speak with one voice and tell them, stop tearing your country apart, stop blocking aid to the Sudanese people, and
the USA has been trying to break apart Sudan and been successful. They already broke away South Sudan, and now they continue this. I mean, the destruction of Sudan as a country has been a U.S. project and an Israeli project from the beginning.
This war now. But people need more than the absence of war. They need a chance to live in dignity. They need to be protected from the ravages of climate change, hunger, and disease. Our administration has invested over $150 billion to make progress in other sustainable development goals. It includes $20 billion for food security, over $50 billion for global health.
Biden's administration is actively trying to reduce the global crop outputs, right? Read what BlackRock is doing, teamed up with the U.S. government. They're actually trying to stop global food production, to reduce the amount of arable farmland. They are working very, very hard to reduce and degrow global agriculture. I mean, if you look at the details of what BlackRock is doing, what the U.S. government is doing, they're trying to force countries to have less food.
We've mobilized billions more in private sector investment. We've taken the most ambitious climate action in history.
Yeah, and that climate action is degrowth, right? You're actively degrowing countries, preventing them from growing their own food, preventing them from having electrification. I mean, you're trying to degrow the global economy, keep people in poverty in the name of climate change.
We've moved to rejoin the Paris Agreement on day one. And today, my country is finally on track to cut emissions in half by 2030. On track to honor my pledge to quadruple climate financing to developing nations with $11 billion thus far this year. We've rejoined the World Health Organization, donating nearly 700 million doses of COVID vaccine to 117 countries. We must now move quickly to face Mpox outbreak in Africa. We're prepared to commit $500 million to help African countries prevent and respond to Mpox and to donate 1 million doses of Mpox vaccine. Now,
Yeah, all this money to do what? To, make developing countries not build power plants, all this money to try and reduce global crop outputs, all this money to fund the vaccine, the World Health Organization, along with all the money you spend in Ukraine. I mean, it's like, what about America? What about the people here in this country that are struggling? I mean, you've just forgotten about them completely, right? You're on this global mission to, reduce consumption, to reduce the amount of electricity that people use, to beat down Russia, to beat down China. And the American people are struggling and impoverished, and you don't seem to care about that, right? You've got your global vaccine mission, you've got your global Malthusian climate change mission, you've got your global anti-China and anti-Russia mission. What about your American working families mission? Where's that?
now. We call on our partners to match our pledge and make this $1 billion commitment to the people of Africa. Beyond the core necessities of food and health, the United States, the G7, and our partners have embarked on an ambitious initiative to mobilize and deliver significant finance to the developing world. We're working to help countries build out their infrastructure, to clean energy transition, to the digital transformation, to lay new economic foundations for a prosperous future. It's called the Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment. We've already started to see the fruits of this emerge in Southern Africa and Southeast Asia.
Yeah, I think China's leading the world in terms of global infrastructure. I mean, USA has been stopping various infrastructure projects in the name of climate change, right? They're trying to block Nicaragua from building the canal to be an alternative to the Panama Canal. They've blocked so many power plants all over the African continent in the name of global warming and stuff. The USA is way behind when it comes to infrastructure. I mean, it's a joke.
In the Americas, we have to keep it going. I want to get things done together. In order to do that, we must build a stronger, more effective, and more inclusive United Nations. The UN needs to adapt and bring new voices and new perspectives. That's why we support reforming and expanding the membership of the UN Security Council.
The UN Security Council, it has 5 permanent members, the United States, Britain, France, Russia, and China. And those are the countries that won World War II. And, what he's saying there about changing the Security Council, they don't like the fact that Russia and China are both permanent voting members of the Security Council. That's what that is. They want to take away Russia's seat on the Security Council so that the UN can be used against Russia and against China.
Our UN ambassador just laid out our detailed vision to reflect today's world, not yesterday's. It's time to move forward. The Security Council, like the UN itself, needs to go back to the job of making peace, of brokering deals to end wars and suffering.
Well, you could be doing that. Russia's been willing to negotiate from day one. I've been covering the UN. He's been saying it every day.
To stop the spread of the most dangerous weapons, of stabilizing troubled regions in East Africa, from East Africa to Haiti, to Kenya-led mission that's working alongside the Haitian people.
Yeah, the Haitian government is corrupt and it's impoverishing the people there. And the current president has no constitutional claim on power and hasn't stepped down. And the USA is propping it up. And it's been working with Kenya, and it's been bringing, soldiers from around the world to prop up the corrupt Haitian regime that the people are in revolt against.
Turn the tide. We also have a responsibility to prepare our citizens for the future. We'll see more technological change, I argue, in the next 2 to 10 years than we have in the last 50 years. Artificial intelligence is going to change our ways of life, our ways of work, and our ways of war. could usher in scientific progress at a pace never seen before, and much of it could make our lives better. But AI,
Not under this system. Self-driving cars lead to poverty, right? Human labor gets replaced by technology. I mean, if we have an irrational, profit-centered system, technology isn't going to help. If we had a government of action that fought for working families, yes, technological advancement would lead to us all be wealthier. But under this system, and in a system where people's only value is their ability to sell themselves to a boss, technological advancement only leads to greater instability.
also brings profound risks, from deep fakes to disinformation, to novel pathogens, to bioweapons. We've worked at home and abroad to define the new norms and standards. This year, we achieved the first ever General Assembly resolution on AI to start developing global rules of the road. We also announced a declaration on the responsible use of AI, joined by 60 countries in this chamber. But let's be honest, this is just the tip of the iceberg, what we need to do to manage this new technology. Nothing is certain about how AI will evolve or how it will be deployed. No one knows all the answers. My fellow leaders, it's with humility I offer two questions. First, how do we as an international community govern AI? As countries and companies race to uncertain frontiers, we need an equally urgent effort to ensure AI's safety, security, and trustworthiness. As AI grows more powerful, it must grow more responsive to our collective needs and values. Benefits of all must be shared equitably. It should be harnessed to narrow, not deepen digital divides.
And how does that work? How are the benefits for all going to be shared equity? I mean, it's like that's just like you can just say that, but how does that work? How is that going to happen, right? When the bulk of us have to rent ourselves out to an employer, and suddenly we have machines that can do everything that a person can do, how is that going to benefit all of us, right? I mean, you can just say that, oh yeah, it's going to benefit everybody. How is that going to happen?
Second, will we ensure that AI supports rather than undermines the core principles that human life has value and all humans deserve dignity? We must make certain that the awesome capabilities of AI will be used to uplift and empower everyday people, not to give dictators more powerful shackles on the human spirit. In the years ahead, there may well be no greater test of our leadership than how we deal with AI. Let me close with this. Even as we navigate so much change, one thing must not change. We must never forget who we're here to represent. We, the people. These are the first words of our Constitution.
Yeah, but this is the United Nations. Every country there has a different constitution. So that's a pretty sloppy way of saying that. We, the people. That's the first words of our country. Everyone there is from a different country, dude.
The very idea of America. They inspired the opening words of the UN Charter. I made the preservation of democracy the central cause of my presidency.
Oh, goodness. You put on a couple of those silly shows, Summits for Democracy, where you grandstanded about democratic values. We did a really great response. We had a summit against hypocrisy to counter your Summit for Democracy in Washington, D.C. You can go watch it on the CPI website under films. It actually was one of our better events. Peter Coffin made a great film about it. It was one of our more successful, events. I will just hold on. I will just show you. That's a really great film of the event that we did to counter your Summit for Democracy, which was really just a propaganda show. But you do these propaganda shows to be like, look, I'm fighting for democracy. It's pretty ridiculous. Pretty ridiculous.
This summer, I faced a decision whether to seek a second term as president.
Yeah, and you were going to, and people were tweeting out that you were going to be the candidate, and everyone was going to do it. And then finally, Kamala Harris, we now know, thanks to Seymour Hersh, threatened to oust you with the 25th Amendment. And You hate Kamala Harris. You did everything you could to avoid her being your VP pick, and she ousted you basically and forced you to step down.
It was a difficult decision. Being president has been the honor of my life.
Yeah, it wasn't a difficult decision. You chose not to do it, and then you had your arm twisted, and everybody knows that.
There's so much more I want to get done. As much as I love the job, I love my country more. I decided after 50 years of public service, it's time for a new generation of leadership.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't.
Take my nation forward. My fellow leaders, let us never forget, some things are more important than staying in power. It's your people.
Oh, wow. So deep. Some things are more important than staying in power. Wow. Wow. What a great man. A great man.
It's your people that matter the most. Never forget, we are here to serve the people, not the other way around. Because the future will be won by those who unleash the full potential of their people, to breathe free, to think freely, to innovate, to educate, to live and love openly without fear.
To post what they believe on the internet, to see alternative viewpoints, to not have their opinions suppressed because they disagree, to not have their home raided by the FBI because they have a different opinion about Russia. Oh, wait, no.
That's the soul of democracy. It does not belong to any one country. I've seen it all around the world. And the brave men and women who ended apartheid, brought down the Berlin Wall.
You mean the communists who ended apartheid. Nelson Mandela, who your government called terrorists, right? You know, the Soviet Union funded the anti-apartheid movement. We're back to that again.
Fight today for freedom and justice and dignity. We saw it. That universal yearning for rights and freedom in Venezuela, for millions.
That's right. Hugo Chavez and Maduro represent the universal longing for freedom. And no, you know, you're going to dump on their election and all of this, and you're just full of malarkey. That was a fair election. Maduro wouldn't be in power now without massive public support.
Their vote for change that hadn't been recognized, but it can't be denied. The world knows the truth. We saw in Uganda LGBT activists demanding safety and recognition of their common humanity. We've seen citizens across the world peacefully choosing their future. From Ghana to India to South Korea, nations representing 1/4 of humanity who will hold elections this year alone. It's remarkable, the power of we the people, that makes me more optimistic about the future than I've ever been. Since I was first elected to the United States Senate in 1972, every age faces its challenges.
You are permanent Washington, if there ever was one, right? You've been in power. You've been in Washington, D.C. since 1972. And Delaware, your home state, go to Wilmington and look at all the poverty. I've been to Wilmington, Delaware. I've seen all the rundown houses, all the poverty. I mean, wow. You are the face of permanent, corrupt Washington, D.C., serving Wall Street, serving the big monopolies, serving their global agenda, and forgetting about the American people. Wow, that is nothing to brag about. You've been in office since 1972, and you have presided over. Look how much more prosperous the USA was back in 1972 than it is now. Thank you, Joe. Thank you for all the great work you've been doing. Oh, it's been great. You look at the average incomes, you look at the infrastructure of the United States and all of that. Wow, what a great job. I mean, what is he up here bragging about?
I saw it as a young man. I see it today. But we are stronger than we think. We're stronger together than alone. And what the people call impossible is just an illusion. Nelson Mandela taught us, and I quote,
Nelson Mandela, who the American government called a terrorist, who was on the Central Committee of the South African Communist Party, who was a good friend of Gaddafi, who was a good friend of Fidel Castro. Yes, continue. Let's talk about Nelson Mandela, who was on my team and not your team. Continue.
It always seems impossible until it's done. It always seems impossible until it's done. My fellow leaders, there is nothing that's beyond our capacity if we work together.
He can't even find somebody on his own team to hold up. He's got to hold up one of ours. He's got to hold up the Soviet-funded communist, funded by the Soviet Union, friend of Gaddafi, Nelson Mandela, over and over and over again. He just counts on people not knowing that, right? They mentioned Nelson Mandela in the same breath as Dr. Martin Luther King or Cesar Chavez, and they never mention who he really was, that he was a communist, that he engaged in armed struggle against the apartheid government, the spear of the nation, right? People say dumb things all the time. They'll say, "Oh, why can't people be peaceful like Nelson Mandela?" Nelson Mandela waged armed struggle on behalf of the black people of South Africa.
Let's work together. God bless you all, and may God protect all those who seek peace. Thank you.
He doesn't seek peace in Ukraine, I'll tell you that much, and he's escalating us toward war in Asia with Taiwan, China. I mean, there you go. All right, folks, my strength is fading fast, but we've got 3 super chats here. I don't see. Oh, there's one Rumble rant, so we'll do those after this. But names and locations. I'll call you out as I see you. It's going to be a shorter stream tonight because my strength is fading. But names and locations. I'll call you all out as I see you, and we'll quickly go through the super chats, and then I'm going to hit the hay because I'm exhausted. Names and locations. Bob in Troy, New York. Welcome. Names and locations. Who is with us? Patrick in Maine. Jim in Miami. Welcome, Jim. Matt in Vermont. Welcome, Matt. Oh, welcome, Matt. Ledyard in Connecticut. Welcome, Ledyard. Rachel in Winder, Georgia. Balthazar. Welcome, Balthazar. Massachusetts, didn't mean to troll earlier. Yeah, it's fine. Go to cpiusa.org. Our website's fine. Rachel, great. Patrick in Maine, right? Mohsin from Iran. Dustin Schlesinger in Cleveland. Dan in the Los Angeles area. St. David's, Bermuda. Ryan in Kansas City. Los Angeles, MacArthur Park. Alex and Susan in Quebec, Montreal. Mohsin in Iran. St. David's, Bermuda. Names and locations. Anybody else? Names and locations. I will call you all out as I see you. James in Boise, Idaho. Welcome, James. Good to have you with us. Alex in Brazil. Welcome. Names and locations. I will call you all out. Master Jack in South Africa. Names and locations. I will call you all out as I see you. Names and locations. Who is with us? Names and locations. Australia, Michael Canberra. Welcome. All righty. Anybody else? Names and locations. All right, folks. I'm going to quickly go through the super chats because I am exhausted. Gabby in Chicago. We're having a workshop out in Chicago in a couple weeks. I hope that you will join us. It's going to be a really, really great workshop. Peter Coffin is going to be there. It's going to be good food, good music. It's going to be a lot of fun. One day, starting early in the morning, October 12th, Saturday, going all day long. It's going to be really, really tremendous. Go and register if you plan to attend. If you're in the Chicago area, go and register. A good number of people have registered already, but more the merrier. We need to know how much food to order and how many packets we're making. Everyone who's going is going to get a bunch of books. You're going to get like a gift packet. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be really, really awesome. So you don't want to miss it. Denver, welcome, everybody. So go and register for the workshop. Link is down below. It's going to be great. Okay. Oh, Chris in Salt Lake City. Welcome, Chris. Very good. All right. Can you react to Javier Milei's speech? I will react to it. You got to remind me, but not tonight. I am exhausted tonight. I don't think it's going to happen tonight, but I think it will happen. I think I will react to that speech. I'll sure do that thing, but probably not tonight. That's my position. There we go. Oh, the Rumble rant. Is Biden the worst president ever? Do any other presidents come close? Well, how do you measure that, right? I mean, George W. Bush was a pretty awful president. Biden is pretty awful in what he's done in Ukraine and how he's suppressing his political opponents, targeting the Uhuru movement, targeting Scott Ritter, the way he, is trying to shut down RT and prevent, the alternative perspectives from being out there, the way he's, he's pretty awful. the inflation, yeah, okay. Yeah, he's up there in terms of awful, but I feel like most U.S. presidents are pretty awful. I feel like we've had two good presidents, Lincoln and Roosevelt, right? And Ulysses S. Grant was okay because he came out of the anti-slavery struggle and he was for the rights of black people. He fought the Klan and he defended Native Americans and he supported labor unions. So I think if Ulysses S. Grant was okay. And other than that, we've had pretty shitty presidents. People like JFK, but honestly, Bay of Pigs, all of that, JFK was moving in a better direction, and then he got shot. I don't know. We haven't had very many good presidents, to be honest. Yeah, Joe Biden is definitely making us poorer. That is, he is doing in terms of the inflation and presiding over the economic demolition of the United States. Just the big monopolies just crushing small businesses, crushing working families, crushing communities, suppressing his opposition and marching us toward World War III. He's a pretty shitty president. He's pretty high up on the list of bad. So, Woodrow Wilson was pretty awful, becoming like the military dictator during World War I, setting up the KKK, and then, running for office on an anti-war ticket. He kept us out of war and then starting us into a war and then, using the war to basically outlaw all the socialist groups. And, Woodrow Wilson was pretty awful. We've had a lot of awful presidents in the United States, but Biden certainly is pretty high up there. Candace Owens reports Kamala lied about her grandmother. That's an interesting one. So Candace Owens, Kamala Harris grandmother. This is an interesting one, right? So what about Kamala Harris, right? So, I do know that Kamala Harris's father did reveal that she is descended from slave owners, right? And that's a big thing, right? Because they want to make Kamala Harris, her father is a black man. He's a Caribbean black man from Jamaica, but he reveals in his essay that she's descended from, one of the wealthiest slave plantation owners, white slave plantation owners of English descent in Jamaican history. So is that what they're talking about? Look, Kamala has lied about so many things. She never worked at McDonald's. That never happened, right? You look at the money her family had and what her mother, there's no way she ever worked at McDonald's. That didn't happen, right? She lied about working at McDonald's, right? She's said, I'm from the middle class. And you saw Al Gore laugh. It's like, I am convinced Trump is going to win this election by a landslide, right? I am convinced that Trump is going to win this election by a landslide because Kamala, the Oprah interview has been so bad. She's not even trying. It's such a joke. She was supposed, we've gone over that in here. And now, I don't know if you saw this, but this is, Al Gore, who's a Democrat who supports Kamala Harris. And he was speaking to a group of Democrats, right? Of Democratic Party people. And he made this comment. And it shows that like a lot of people in the Democrat camp are laughing at her and think she's a big joke. When I saw this, this was Axios, which is a think tank. They had Al Gore, and Al Gore supports Kamala Harris. This room, they're all like high-ranking, wealthy people that support Kamala Harris, think tank people, and all of this. And this exchange actually happened on the stage. Watch this.
You recited some of those facts before, but
you've
they're
written
serious.
About them.
Yes,
before.
I've written about them many times.
This audience may not all have heard those facts before.
That's true. Also,
I want to point out that Kamala Harris grew up in a middle-class family also.
Thank you.
Do you see they're all laughing? Right, because Kamala Harris didn't grow up in a middle-class family. Her father was from a wealthy Jamaican family, wealthy enough to go to the United States and get a PhD in economics. Her mother is from a wealthy Indian family, so wealthy they could afford to send their daughter in the early 1960s all the way to America to study, cancer and become a medical researcher, right? It's like, oh yeah, she's from the middle class, and they're laughing about it.
Also,
I want to point out that Kamala Harris grew up in a middle-class family also.
Yeah, and the audience is laughing, right? And they're all sick of Kamala's talking points. They all know she's so full of shit, right? And that's an audience of Democrats. That's an audience of high-ranking people, Al Gore fans, and they all know that Kamala's full of shit, and they're laughing about it. So there you go. We will win. Shout out to all CPI members. Folks, I'm pretty tired right now because I've been on the phone with people all day and I've been figuring different things out. I had some early morning phone calls and all of that. And I am actually really excited, right? I know my face is not communicating it right now because I'm wiped. I am wiped, but I've been talking to people all day. I've been figuring out different options and oh, wow. You think we had the opportunity to do some amazing stuff before? Woo! It looks like we got some amazing opportunities that have fallen right into our lap. They say life gives you a lemon, you make lemonade. I didn't exactly get a lemon, but it was a change. Let me just put it that way. And I didn't exactly know what the change meant, but it looks like some big opportunities are coming our way. CPI, I mean, we have a big plan for what we're going to be doing in the next couple months, and that big plan just got even more exciting. We're not ready to talk about it until we really know what we're going to do, until we worked out all the details. But it looks like, we know that what we do is really, really important, right? We know that. And we got all this stuff we're working on. We got the October 12th workshop. We also, we're doing stuff around the Korean Peninsula. And I worked on that a little bit today. I put in some phone calls and some orders, and you're going to be hearing about Korean Peninsula stuff very soon. That's happening. But some really big opportunities came our way today, and I am pumped. I am really, really excited for the Center for Political Innovation because we got something here and we stand by our principles and we are consistent. That's really, really important if you do this kind of work. There's a lot of people that'll do this kind of stuff for a year or they'll do it for 2 years and then they get mad at somebody and then they just run back to normal life. We're here and we're consistent, and we've been tried by fire. We've been attacked. We've been through some shit and we have not backed down. And it looks like other people have noticed that, which is good, right? Because I'm going to do this as long as I live, right? I've been doing this since my entire adult life has been me doing what I do, and promoting these politics and anti-imperialism and developing and getting better at what I do. And it looks like some great opportunities are coming our way. So, again, a lot of details need to be worked out. A lot of plans need to be hammered out and made, but it looks like this community is marching forward, right? I knew we were going to have a big convention next summer. That I knew, right? I made that decision in July. I decided a year from now, we're going to have a huge convention in Chicago. I had no idea what was coming our way. And it looks like things are lining up pretty good for us. That's all I can say right now. So, tune in to the morning messages. If you want to support CPI, there is some weird turmoil in my life. So if you do want to support me directly, you can always Cash App me, Caleb Maupin 22 on Cash App. I don't know exactly how long different things are going to take. And so support is always appreciated. Or if you would like to support what we're doing, which people have been doing it, I'm really impressed. People have stepped up, and the convention fund for next summer is growing. It's growing very, very significantly right now. The convention fund is rising, and so you can donate to the convention fund. I don't handle those funds if you're concerned, whatever, there was innuendo at one point. So if you want to donate to funds that other people are handling on behalf of CPI, you can donate there. Some great stuff is happening. Some very, very, very great stuff is happening. Some great opportunities are coming our way. I'm exhausted because I had a big day of talking to people on the phone about it and figuring out what my options are and finding lawyers and all kinds of stuff, because there's a lot of things that are going to have to be worked out, but it looks like, we're going to be doing some great, great things, in the coming months. So thank you all for being here and staying strong and not backing down. I'll see you in Chicago, and I will probably see you tomorrow night. I don't know why I wouldn't. I just, have to get some sleep. So we did an early stream tonight. Thanks for being here. And, I am probably going to go sleep so I can get up again tomorrow and be on the phone with people and take care of business again tomorrow. We're marching forward, folks. Never surrender. We always
New
win.
upsurge in the struggle against U.S. imperialism is now emerging throughout the world. Ever since World War II,
U.S. imperialism and its followers have been continuously launching wars of aggression. But the people of various countries have been continuously waging revolutionary wars to defeat their aggression. And while the danger of a new world war still exists, and the people of all countries must get prepared, revolution is the main trend in the world today.